1969 is widely regarded as one of the best, and if not the best year for American muscle cars. Virtually every manufacturer had released the fastest versions of their cars yet, from the 426 Hemi B-body Mopars all the way up to the 396 SS Camaros and Boss Mustangs. Gas was cheap, beer was plentiful, and there was plenty of freshly paved, two-lane blacktop across the country just waiting to be raced on. And there was no better car to tear up the asphalt with than the brand new 1969 Mercury Cougar Eliminator, which was not only potentially the coolest named vehicle ever, but also a no-joke performance monster that let owners beat some of the baddest factory performance cars at the time and do it all in style and comfort. This is all you need to know about the rare and exciting 1969 and 1970 Mercury Cougar Eliminator. For those unaware, the Mercury Cougar itself is based heavily on the Ford Mustang platform. The Cougar was introduced in 1967 as an upmarket version of the Mustang that provided more amenities, more luxury, and a different overall flair of styling. The first-generation Cougars from 1967 to 1970 were built on the corresponding years of Mustang chassis as a base. The Cougars had more of that space-age look and had a lot more chrome and interior goodies, but underneath, they still retained that Mustang performance pedigree. The 1967 and 1968 Mercury Cougars were the first iteration of the car, and the body style, although different than a Mustang, did look very good. For 1969, though, the Mustang and the Cougar would go through yet another body style revision, and for these model years, the Cougar changed in form to a much more stylized design language that is often referred to as the Coke bottle styling. These new Mercury Cougars had long, swooping, stylized body lines down the side of the car and onto the rear quarter panels, which also tapered off more at the back than the prior body style did, giving these cars a slippery yet muscular appearance. Mercury introduced the Eliminator version of the Cougar in an effort to fix a problem that had plagued the car from the start. See, in the era of the horsepower wars, Mercury was not really known as a performance brand. Yes, they did make quick cars, but most of the public attributed the brand to being more about luxury and comfort. With the era being defined by primarily younger men looking to go fast, luxury and comfort were down the necessity ladder, which made the Mercury lineup tend to have an older buyer base. Mercury as a brand wanted to shift the public perception of the Cougar from just being a better equipped and more luxurious Mustang to a true standout performance machine. Mercury thought that creating a version of their Cougar that was specifically focused on performance would be a great way to attract younger, performance-hungry buyers. And the name Eliminator was heavily inspired by a 1968 Mercury Cougar funny car that was also called the Eliminator. From a brand perspective, tying the name of the new Eliminator to the funny car would provide an easy parallel to the serious performance of the funny car for the road car, which would hopefully make the new Eliminator road car more popular with the younger buyers. The Eliminators had a slew of exterior extras that were exclusive to them so that nobody would ever dare mistake them for your aunt's regular Mercury Cougar. The Eliminators offered bright color combinations, factory side stripes and hood decals, a rear airfoil wing, a front chin spoiler, a blacked-out grille, and Eliminator-specific decals that let everybody know you were driving something special. And the Eliminator was indeed a special car, especially under the hood. The standard engine for a 1969 Mercury Cougar Eliminator was a 351 cubic inch Windsor motor that received some goodies over the standard Cougar's 351. The Eliminator's 351 Windsor received a 4-barrel carburetor and a compression bump to 10.7 to 1, which helped boost overall power to 290 horsepower and 385 foot-pounds of torque compared to the regular Cougar's 250 horsepower. The 351 Windsor was then subsequently replaced with the 351 Cleveland for the 1970 model year of the Cougar. But that wasn't the only engine available in the Eliminator. For those who wanted even more performance, there were actually many more factory go-fast engine options. For example, for 1969 only, the Eliminator was also available with the 320 horsepower and 400 plus foot-pound of torque 390. which was a very strong motor as well. And if you wanted to ascend the performance ladder, you could then even option the Eliminator with a 428 Cobra Jet big block, which made 335 horsepower and a monstrous 440 foot-pounds of torque. Oh, and we're not done yet, by the way. For the concerning buyer who wanted the craziest Eliminator that he could get, they could also option these cars with the legendary 428 Super Cobra Jet or the high-strung Screamer Boss 302 engine, which would have been my personal choice. Both of these combinations also happen to be incredibly rare, with production numbers of each being just around 150 cars. Depending on your engine selection, 3- and 4-speed manual transmissions or a C6 automatic were the transmission options that you could get with the Cougar. Different gear ratios were also available, going as low as 3 and 350 and going all the way up to a 430 gear ratio with a Detroit locker for the drag pack equipped cars. The drag pack was also required to get the 428 Super Cobra Jet. With all these different engine options, the Eliminator was truly a car that could feel totally different between the engine options while still looking exactly the same. The sheer difference between how a Boss 302 powered Eliminator versus a 428 Cobra Jet powered one would feel and perform is staggering, especially because they looked almost identical. As for performance numbers, the 428 Cobra Jet powered Cougars could do 0 to 60 in 7.2 seconds and clocked a quarter mile in a respectable 14.4 seconds at just under 100 miles an hour, making it on par performance-wise with a 440 powered Dodge Charger and other serious performers at the time. And with the Eliminator, one of the major selling points still was that you could do all of this from a relatively nicely appointed and well-equipped interior. The Eliminators seemed like an absolute slam dunk as far as Mercury was concerned, and they truly thought it would help breathe life into their flatlining sales among younger buyers. However, to truly revitalize a brand and to make it appeal to a market segment that they normally hadn't takes a lot more than one car and just a year or two to do so. The Cougar Eliminators were quick, but most people that were buying a car in that younger market segment at the time didn't view Mercury as a performance brand, even with the Eliminator changes. Couple that with the fact that because the Eliminator was a better equipped and more luxurious car, that meant you could easily have a $5,000 plus window sticker if you wanted some choice options, which made them a lower power per dollar rating than other cars. And for younger people who are strapped for cash, the comfort versus speed debate was a pretty easy one to answer, with people overwhelmingly choosing the speed over comfort. As a result, only about 4,500 Mercury Cougar Eliminators were produced throughout the 1969 and 1970 model years. After this, Mercury returned to a more luxury focus with the 71 Cougar, spelling the end of the lineup for the performance-oriented Eliminators. Oh, and by the way, there was actually one other engine that the Eliminators were built with, the Boss 429 motor. Now, these cars could not be ordered from the factory, but there were two Boss 429 equipped Eliminators that were given to big-name drag racers at the time to use, Don Nicholson and Eddie Sharpman to be exact. And if you remember from earlier in the video, the Eliminator name for this model was based off of the 1968 Mercury Cougar Eliminator funny car. Well, Don Nicholson used to be the one that drove the Mercury Cougar funny car that inspired the Eliminator name, so it was only right that he got one as well. Unfortunately, these cars didn't actually see much racing, and they were supposedly going to go back to Ford and Mercury and be crushed. Only they were never returned and never crushed. And today, both of these cars are still out there as what the pinnacle of the Mercury Cougar Eliminator could have been. The Eliminators were solid performance machines for the time, and they seemed to get swept under the rug when compared to some of the other more high-dollar, high-horsepower options. But the fact that Mercury took a chance, took a risk, and really tried to revitalize its brand and get more into the performance aspect of things with the Eliminator is something that we should all still celebrate, especially considering the fact that Mercury as an auto manufacturer is no longer around. And that is the short history of the 1969 and 1970 Mercury Cougar Eliminators. If you enjoyed this video, we would greatly appreciate it if you could drop a like and also share this video with other enthusiasts. Also, please make sure that you are subscribed to the Rare Cars YouTube channel and smash the notification bell for more documentary-style videos just like this on the world's most interesting cars. Until next time, enthusiasts.